Let's see. Kara, do you want to lead us in the pledge?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. So let's get to the ground. Bear with me. Okay. So, Taste of the Holidays. That was an awesome time. Thank you, everybody. Great job. Lisa, you want to say anything about the event?
I just really want to thank my committee, everyone that helped me so much in putting this all together. I mean, I think as I said on email, Brandy says that teamwork is dream work, and it's totally true. I mean, we just got it all together, and it was very successful. I got nothing good but good remarks back from all the vendors, because I reached out to all of them to thank them and ask them for any comments. And if there's anything that anybody saw as far as improvements for next year or something that you want to add, we did discuss that in an after meeting, but if anybody else has any comments, just let me know and we'll make changes for next year.
All right, thank you. one of the remarkable things too, the gift, the quality of the baskets we had was amazing this year. And in particular, AJ, your group, you guys got the fire pit and the bench, and so we got a big round of applause. Yeah, just want to thank everybody. Everyone worked really, really hard the whole time, and long hours. And it was a great event. So it was a classic taste of the holidays. So with that, we call Miss Rachel up here and. It's been a month, so.
Yeah, that's a good start. It's almost as good as talking about it.
So if your name appears on the screen, please come up here. If you're here.
If you're here.
So these are the individuals that went above and beyond selling raffle tickets, and so we have a little gift for them here.
Woo!
Ashley sold $780 worth, Lisa sold $600 worth, Randy sold $450 worth, Brian sold $660 worth, and Praj sold $480 worth of Taste of Holiday tickets. So thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, so now let's start with visiting Rotarians, and yes, we'll start at this table here. Romy, you want to introduce Lonny?
I'm so happy to introduce Lonny Graham. Lonny is our speaker this morning, and he's going to tell you things that are going to make you so proud of the work that's happening, largely based on his leadership, to create our Environmental Resources Engineering program, to bring in the students that are in that program, changing the world for the better. I always call that ERE program the engineers who are going to save the planet. And they have a lot of inspirational folks, and this is right at the top of the list. And Lonny, I'm just so thankful. I always love listening to him. When I went on the road recruiting and I had to tell stories that make Humboldt State great, it always included the work that Lonny's doing. So I'm excited for you to get a little taste of it.
That was a really good introduction. Really awesome. This is Ollie. She's from Main Tree, and she's visiting from Eureka Rotary.
All right.
Sorry. It's really
That
awesome.
was great. Very powerful. All right, travelers, Sojourning Sunrisers. It's been almost a month since we've been here, so did somebody go somewhere? Or want to talk about a trip that they had? No? Yes, Carol, Scott?
I spent a week in Arizona, here from Arizona. It was beautiful with my family, and moved my 97-year-old grandmother from Omaha to Carefree, and we celebrated Thanksgiving together. So.
Wow, awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Scott?
One of my wife's growers moved to New Zealand quite a few years ago. We went out there for her graduation for the PhD. The week before Thanksgiving, we went out for her wedding. She married a Kiwi, so we were invited to a small group of friends and family out there, and follow it up. We went diving in Vanuatu. All
right. Maggie?
I spent Thanksgiving in Boston with 3 of my nieces. They're kids from all 3 of my different siblings, so cousins, and they all remarked afterwards that it was the best family holiday they've ever had, because there weren't any parents there, there weren't any siblings there, and we had a great time. And I also took a dive in Boston on a street, landed on it was witnessed. I approved. People came over, and I said, I'm okay. But other than that, Boston's great, and the weather was great. Didn't have to drive in snow, so it may become a new family tradition that we all just do Thanksgiving after
Do that. All right, thank you. Anybody else? Anything fun yet? All righty. Oh, I did want to say, Bob, it's good to see you here.
Yeah, Bob!
What about Bob?
Birthdays, we had a lot of them. Who's here that's up there?
Party continues.
Our party continues. Anyway, Susan, Rob, John, Jim, and Mark. So let's just sing for them anyway, so we've got it on the film. And
So they can watch it live.
This is
go ahead.
happy birthday wherever the hell you are. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rotarians. Happy birthday to you. And come back soon.
Better than that each time. Anniversaries. Yes.
I remember that. We did, so that's what you did.
Elaborate.
Vanuatu is a very cool island. It's probably what Hawaii used to be 30 years ago. Unfortunately, they're now starting to get a bunch of cruise ships in there in a couple of days, and it's not helping the economy. It's pretty depressed there. They've got a lot of cyclones. They get them every once in a while. It wastes pretty much every now. We went to the village where the people that work at a resort live, and each time they get enough money together, they buy a pallet of bricks and sand so that they can at least start building some structures that don't blow down or anything. So they still have thatch hut roofs and tin roofs and stuff. So yeah, it's kind of depressing to see what's happening to the native environment there, and it's really depressing to see what happens when tourism is sort of letting them check. But beautiful country, beautiful diving, great diversity in the water. It's still nice and alive. It's not a lot of industry that's polluting the waters. Besides a little bit of cyclone destruction as well.
Wow. Well, happy anniversary.
I thought it was 3 years.
All right, Susan's not here. I will definitely keep this slide coming back. I want to hear all about this. They've had a little performance. Let's see, Brandy, where are you? But I want to also thank Brandy for taking all the photos at Taste of the Holidays.
And a shout out to Scott who put together that slide.
Yeah, big Scott put that together. That was beautiful. Yeah.
So, and for those who were here on October 20th, I was taking some photos during the meeting. We had Laird speaking that morning, and it was like a revisit of 30 years ago, a day in the life of the Humboldt kind of a thing, but it's people, places, and events, a photo documentary. And it's the cover story in the North Coast Journal. It's going to be a show up for 2 months. Arts Alive tomorrow, 6 to 9. If you're in Eureka, come and check it out there at Swanlands. And out of the 70-some photographers and over 300 images, there was a panel of people who selected 27 to be in that show, and one of my neighbors was in the show.
All right, and unfortunately Terry's not here today. Lori, did you want to mention a little bit about the award bestowed on Terry here? She's not here.
So Terry and Marty were recognized at the foundation dinner for being part of the Bequest Society, which means that you put something in your will saying that when you die, call it service beyond self, when you die, there'll be money for Rotary. They were recognized at a level 5, which if you go onto the website for Rotary.org and look at the amount, it's probably more than most of our houses are worth, so that's pretty impressive.
So, and then recognitions for now. Joyce, we're going to start sending pictures to this email and whatnot. You want to say anything about that, or just?
So I have been gone a lot of Fridays because of my work, but I really want to remind folks for photos and recognitions. So you can send any of those. You can send your own, and I'm going to try to keep track and reach out to folks that haven't been recognized. But if you get them to me at that email address, we'll be able to funnel them into the program really successfully. And so don't feel bad about any of those things. It's hard to try to just pull off of Facebook and try to shame it that way. So we'd really like to hear from you, or what you want to be recognized about, and what others might know about as well. So please be active in that, and we'll send out reminders.
And is that spelled right? Is it?
No, that is not spelled.
Okay.
What I'll do is I'll send out the link to everybody so you can just click and save.
Are you really a product of Arcata High?
Right up above.
Yeah, exactly. Put it together.
Is that a test? Did I win something?
All right, we got a Blue Badger coming up, so, JJ and Rachel and Belinda. That was fast. That was fast.
Yeah.
It's fast, it's like Kyle.
Because Kyle had been going to board meetings.
So Belinda has attended her board meetings, completed her Sergeant at Arms tasks, visited other Rotary groups, and then completed her craft talk. So let's all congratulate Belinda on graduating from Red to Blue Badge.
Yeah, we didn't think the blue badge was quite fitting, so we made, Melinda's obsessed with pizza, so we made her a special badge.
So good?
Eggs and chicken gravy? That'd be
Thanks, guys.
That's it, that's all we got.
So we've got a lot of,
I just want to say something really quick in reference to Taste the Holidays and my committee. Melinda actually stepped in when Scott was going to be leaving on vacation, and here she's new to our club, and she just came through so quickly, so fast, and especially in like the last couple days where Dustin was running down to go on the radio or whatever. She just made it all happen, and I just, you know, you just were a powerhouse coming through, and I just really want to thank you.
So we've got a lot of stuff coming up ahead of us, and I'll try to go through this fairly quickly. We sponsored both the girls and boys basketball tournaments up at Arcata High. So the girls tournament is going on right now. It started last night, and to check game times and stuff, go online or talk to somebody you know. But it would be fun to go up there and watch them play. Next week is the 50th annual AIBT Arcata Invitation Basketball Tournament, and we've sponsored that for a while now. Rebecca, did you want to say something about ads?
Yeah, and before I started participating with the youth committee, I didn't really know what this is. It is the Arcata Invitational Basketball Tournament. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's like a bunch of teams are coming from out of town. They're competing in tourneys. I actually participate in middle school tourneys both of those weekends. That's one at Jacoby Creek University. So I will be there. I'll be at the basketball game. But it's really neat when you go to these events, and it's really neat that they bring teams from out of the area, because usually you're just competing against the same local teams. I'm playing, McKinleyville High, and I'm playing Eureka High. And so it's nice that they bring them all together. What the Rotary Club does at that event, the big thing we do is we help with teachers. So for the girls team, we're buying championship t-shirts for all the girls who win the championship. And then at the boys tourney, we give the championship t-shirts and then some coaches.
Champion, alternate, MVP, and then the t-shirts that they sell. Yeah.
And then we also sell some t-shirts, but to kind of help cover the cost of getting those t-shirts and kind of helping you bring the event to a little more special, right? It's kind of cool when you come out and you get your t-shirt because I'm the champion. We help with the program, and we put ads in the program. So Dustin sent out an email, and it's got a list of the prices and the sizes for ads. So folks who have the ability, we really appreciate it if you sent Dustin the information. I think and you can get him the money, whatever. But most important right now, if you're into sponsoring and getting your name into the program, get him your graphic art to get in there, and that kind of helps offset the cost. And at the men's game, everybody gets programs. The women's game is the women's tournament they're still working on, and I'm really actually proud of this club for sponsoring the women's tournament as a mom of a girls basketball. I think it's really awesome that we're sponsoring that as well. So check out the email from Dustin, and maybe you can resend it. But we really appreciate your help, and we'd really love to have all your art by Sunday because the boys' tourney starts next weekend. In our planning, we were a little off in our timing. We thought it was.
Time flies during this time of year, so yeah.
So,
awesome.
support is
Yes.
appreciated.
And then with that, we have coaches night, which is a chance for us to get to mingle with the coaches, and it's also an incentive for teams that come in from out of town to kind of get to go out and hang out here. So we buy appetizers. We'll be in the annex Friday night after the last game, which is usually 9 o'clock, and so we can get into all the games for free with our pin on, and we can partake in coaches night and whatnot. So if you want to come to that and hang out and talk to players and coaches, we're welcome to do that. So I'll be here. It's always most fun. Christmas caroling, that is the second Los Bagels, 6 o'clock.
Tomorrow night.
In Eureka, tomorrow night. That's
Be there.
fun. And then, Ed, you want to talk about the Foster Youth Dinner coming up?
But it's the 7th, not the 9th.
Okay.
That's correct. It is the 7th, that is next Thursday. And every year, our club helps provide this food for these youth. For a lot of these youth and their families, about 250 to 300 people. For a lot of those folks, this is the only really good home-cooked meal they get. We're following a tradition that Siva helped us set years ago where we cook it all. It's not from bags, it's not from processed, it's really great food. It is again Thursday the 7th, and we're going to start serving food at 5 if you want to come a little early. We'd love to have setup time. There's a little cleanup work. I sent out a sign-up genius on Wednesday. Love to have you join us. There's setup, there's cleanup, there's serving food, there's serving water, escorting families to tables. We would love to have the help. It's a really fun time. It's easy work. It's very rewarding. And it's the look on people's faces when they get that great big pile of food, they love it. So, hope you can join us.
Thank you, Ed. Yeah, you said there's a sign-up genius out right now, right?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. And then,
I didn't get it either.
these guys didn't get it over here.
Yeah,
I used the one on Sign Up Genius, the one that same sign up list that said would have been used for Taste of the Holidays. So
Rachel did that.
I can resend it to that group. Yeah, I'll send it out again. I'll
Did anyone?
do my best to make sure we've got all the addresses on it.
Sure, okay.
Okay, thanks.
We need to make sure there's so many new folks that when if you send something to the whole club, make sure that our Red Badgers are on there.
Yeah, thank you. We have to earn a lot of folks and email updates too, so.
And I think Howard sent one that has everyone, right?
His most recent roster
So
is
go to most
current,
recent
yeah.
roster and update all the things you sent, so everyone's on it.
Awesome. Carol?
And speaking of food, we have just a quick in and out food for people. We do backpacks for kids, but that's just one of 18 different programs of food for people. If you want to come down to the facility, I am circulating. Is there it's right paper? All right, there's a paper sign-up sheet to give an idea. It's just from 10 to 12 down at Food for People. Get a feel for all the different programs that they do, including like senior brown bag delivery, all kinds of different packaging of food. And you can bring your family, your kids to it as well. So
It's a work day, not just a
Work day.
presentation.
it's a work day, hands-on, 10 to 10, okay?
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Carol. So we've got a lot of stuff coming up. Let's see, and then the big thing too, we're doing E15 this year. Our club is sponsoring that, and Crystal has volunteered to be co-chair of that. She works with APD and with Arcata High, so it's a perfect little sponsor there. So
Every 15 minutes.
yeah, oh, sorry, every 15. So if you don't know about that, it's a pretty powerful program that the state, CHP, and different high schools put on, and different clubs around here. I know we sponsor it. I think other clubs do too each year. And it's to curb kids from drunk driving. So it's a real elaborate production, and they stage a car wreck and deaths and whatnot. Just to really drive it home. But it takes a lot of work to put on, and So if you'd like to be on the committee and help Crystal out, and it's going to take a lot of us to put this together. Email Crystal. If you don't have her email, you can ask me for it, but it should be on the roster. And let's just get this committee going. And you have anything to say about that, Crystal? Or?
No, I'm just learning about it right now, so.
That's why you're
I know as much as you do right now.
What meeting did she miss when she became a
Oh, you have minor stroke here? Okay. Awesome.
No, primary.
So that's coming up. Just and we'll get this committee going. And it's late April. I say that because the high school is not sure what exactly it's going to be, but they told me late April. So that's what we're looking at. Backpacks for kids. Are we not doing that right now, or?
I got a comment on the last one.
Sure.
We have a program change for next week. We're going to have the CHP here instead of the Harbor District. So he's going to be ready to answer any questions you might have. So just think about it this week and get ready for next week.
Okay. Then let's see. Backpack for kids.
John's not here, but, so the food's out here to be packed and everything. I did need somebody to deliver today because I cannot, and John's not here to deliver. Can anybody deliver today?
I can do it.
You can do it? Do you want to coordinate?
Oh.
Okay, or you can just work that out. And then also next Friday, I don't know if John will be here, but I definitely won't be here. Can you deliver?
No, I have a general question about,
Yes.
is it to one school, is it to 4 schools?
It's 3 schools.
Okay.
So most of the bags, 14 bags, there's 24 bags, and 14 bags usually go to Arcata Elementary, and then there's Trillium, which was over on Spear, and then our new one is Pacific Union, which is right on whatever that main street is. Jane, yeah. And so it's right there, you just deliver to the front office or wherever, and it's really easy. The biggest thing is, packing everything up and just getting it over there, so. Anyway, if somebody can deliver next Friday, that would be great, because I will not be here. Tammy's gonna pick up the food, and it'll be here, but we need a volunteer for it. Okay?
Great. All right. Let's see. Is it Marilyn Gold? We'll do her presentation next week because we've got a lot to cover today. So, Izzy, though, let me pull up your presentation. And you want to come up and tell us about the last, month it's been?
Yeah.
That you've been here. So. This one?
It's open there at the bottom.
There it is.
Yeah, so.
She'll get it.
Help good. Are you going to talk this to clickers on the work here?
So, we had the inbound San Francisco / Los Pasos trip, and we went to San Francisco, and it was really great. I love the city. It's an awesome city. The moment when we took the ferry over the bay, and the moment when I saw the city, I was overwhelmed because this was the first American city I saw. I always saw And the next weekend, I went down to my friend Yana to Santa Rosa. She's also an inbound, and we went to San Francisco again. And we also met my friend from Austria. He's also an exchange student. He lives near San Francisco, so we met him. And a bunch of his exchange student friends from his district, and it was really great to see Austria again. And then we had the Thanksgiving break and Thanksgiving. So we had 2 Thanksgivings. We had Thanksgiving dinner with the family on Sunday. That's the picture. And then on the see some of you there. And then next week, Friday, my AI group is some kind of event. We have a showcase at Redwood Yogurt, and yeah.
That's December though, right? Not
Yeah.
I'm not the only one for this, so. Thank you,
I'd like
Izzy.
to just say a couple last things. This is the last weekend that Izzy's going to be with us. She's switching host families. Julie Stan on Sunday, and it's been really lovely having her. It's really great to have exchange students from various parts of the world come and live with you. If any of you ever get a chance to have an exchange student, it's a little bit of work, but it's very rewarding. Izzy's been wonderful, and we stay in contact with our past exchange student, Judy, from last year. We FaceTime her occasionally, and it's really great to hear from her. And we hosted Ale from Italy 2 years ago from the Noon Club, and he surprised us at our house during the Thanksgiving break. He's going to school down in Monterey. And he came up to have Thanksgiving with Chuck from the Noon Club. We were just at home, and there's a knock at the door, and there's this, this kid, big fuzzy hair and everything, right? And it was great to visit with him. And he actually ended up spending 2 nights sleeping in our back room. My son Wesley was there because he was out partying and he needed a place to crash. That's what it's like having an exchange. But just once again, it's really been nice to have Izzy. Always going to be a part of her family. We love her very much, and so thank you very much.
So that's then tomorrow at the Art Theater and tonight? Is that?
What time?
What time?
8 o'clock.
8. Okay.
What about the one next Friday?
That's probably at like 6. I don't know.
It's during our circuit.
Get there early. If it's anything like when Brody was in AAI, you're not going to find a place to sit unless you get there probably Thursday.
All right, so with that, actually, our next slide.
Dick would do that.
Presenter today. So when you hear proper introduction, come on up, come on up. This is Lonny Graham. Lonny is an instructor at Humboldt State University, the founder of the Practivistas Resilient Community Technology Program, project manager of the floating food forest in Swale, is that? Swale, the president of the Appropriatia Foundation, and the author of the new book, To Catch the Rain. Lonny has developed courses at universities in 4 countries and facilitated engagements around the world. He has worked on over 1,000 projects across a broad spectrum of sustainable design. Throughout all these technology implements, he has found the most vital component to be community. Today he's going to be talking about community-based innovation and harnessing the power of local ingenuity through the lens of rainwater catchment. So with that, Lonny, welcome, and the stage is yours.
I have till 8, is that right? I just want
Yeah, you got a little while.
I got
You have a raffle and some announcements.
Okay, great.
So you're good to go.
So these are amazing introductions. I feel a little funny because I think they got something wrong. I was here to talk about pizza badge making. There's an art. Yeah, you see, like we have an expert here, so I've never seen a pizza badge. It's amazing. Is this? Can I plug this in?
Try it.
Can I try?
Yeah.
All right, is there a plug on the screen?
There's one underneath here on the there's one back here too.
All right, I'm just going to try this really quick. I have a lot of slides. We'll see if it, no, maybe not. All right.
One of those days.
Yeah, I see it's flashing some. There we go. All right.
Got the touch.
So I was here, I recognize some of you, I was here about 2.5 years ago, and I was talking about appropriate technology and mentioned some projects, and this is like really just a continuation of that conversation from 2.5 years ago. 2.5 years ago, a couple of you asked me what Practivistas meant, because that was one of the projects I was talking about. And I was like, all right, I need a working definition. I still don't have one, but the idea is instead of telling people what not to do, we just get crazy groups of people together to build things that people want to do. Right? So, and we need people doing both. Like, we need, a lot of my friends are out there saying, hey, we need to stop doing this, it's bad for the planet. And then Hacktivistas just works on building things that are easier or cooler or more fun or sexier to do. And I want to talk about a few examples of that. One of them is Swale, just as an example of Hacktivism. The context is, in New York, it's illegal to grow public food for public use. Can't do it. It's illegal. You cannot grow public food for public use. You can have like a community garden that's private and people pay for it. That's okay. But you can't have public food for public use. Well, the water has different laws. So we built a floating food forest on the water, right? The idea was to take a barge. These are artist renderings of taking a 5,000 square foot barge and then just filling it with food and bringing it from port to port where people could come collect food and learn about food. And so in 2016, we took this barge that was pretty beat up, converted it with a theater house and plants, and then that's an aerial shot of what we made. Thanks, and this isn't exactly what we wanted, but this is all that we could afford. Like, was this flat, what we did is we took water bladders and cut them open and filled them with soil. And so it's kind of flat, but still you got that food experience. And it worked. People loved it. We had 300 to 500 visitors a day for the whole summer. We were in the Bronx, we were in Brooklyn, Governor's Island, and then we have about 3 days a week we have free lectures, or how to collect seeds, or how to make medicines from food, or how to just cook food. It got covered by like the Huffington Post. It was in an airplane magazine, which was great because, you know, like I'm more prone to tears when I'm in airplanes. I think, I was like, oh my God, we're in an airplane magazine. It's amazing. People care. We're 21 things people need to know about. Ironically, this was in like the fall one, and we closed down in the fall. But you know, so we did. It worked. It was a prototype. Just like all design processes, we're like, okay, let's make it happen and see people like it, and people loved it. So we did what like all great projects do, and we updated our logo. I don't know if you can tell, but it looks a lot better in 2017. And so this was the new artist idea. We want hills, like people walking through an environment, and an orchard. Like people are like, you know, fruit trees would be awesome. And so we did it. Those are the artist renderings. There's some fakery going on in that because this was shot in a really cold winter season, but we had to make it look like spring. But other than that, it's pretty real. And then this is what it really looks like. You're in this immersed environment, and it's crazy because you're floating, but you're surrounded by plants, and so you see the horizon moving, and it's a little bit odd. These are some photos from when I went out and presented on rainwater recently. That one isn't. This one is. When I showed up, I couldn't have asked for a better landing. Like I get there, I'm sitting in this house for like a minute talking to Dottie, who's sitting in the house right now. She's the leader of the Youth Ministries of Peace and Justice, and her students, her youth, take over the barge in the Bronx, so they do all the programming. They have a DJ booth. They're on there every day showing people about food and plants. And so I'm sitting on there, and a little kid comes running up to his mom right here and says, Mommy, that grows from this. And he's holding a seed, and he's just totally amazed that plant grows from this. And she looks at us, and she's like, there's just not enough nature up in the Bronx. You know, and she was almost embarrassed, and like she shouldn't be embarrassed. Cities should be embarrassed for not building enough infrastructure. I think being in Humboldt, sometimes we get pretty spoiled with like we know how things grow. We might have some problems on the subway, but we'll figure that out, right? So that was covered on like. It was on now this, and it ended up, this is an older photo, it had like 3 million views on that. And it's a whimsical project. It's not meant to be a solution. Like if our solution to the food problems and inequity of our world is to grow food on barges, we're in trouble. Like that is not, but what it is meant to be an inspiration on how we can bring nature and food back into our environments. And it moves so that we can bring that inspiration and engage in neighborhoods in different ways. So when we're in Brooklyn, it's different than when we're in the Bronx. And then also it's New York, and so if we can have that impact on media so people get the idea of it, it's had 400 million impressions now of people actually watching it and getting ideas. And a lot of the work that we've done on these projects in New York have been done from Humboldt. In fact, we shipped 1,000 pounds of projects from here 1 year.
I just am curious what kind of foods grow well in that environment.
It's all the food that's on there. 90% of the food that's on there is local and perennial and meant to be like this evolving food for us. So the apple even that we have on there is the only apple that's endemic to New York, which it has a name. And then we have pawpaw and all these other. Some of them are hard to recognize, and that was part of what we were doing, is like, oh, this is actually food. You can actually eat this, and this is how you prepare it. And then we had things that people were maybe more used to, like kale and cabbage and strawberries, because strawberries. But coastal strawberries that get handled, which we also have here. We can handle it. The idea is if we can get this going for about 5 to 6 years, then most of the plants that it's planted with will just kind of be taking care of themselves. So instead of like a floating garden, it's more of a floating food forest. And so part of what we need to do is engage with like, well, how do you prepare this food that might not look exactly like all the other foods? Does that answer your question? And then we'll have a list online of like 70 of the main plants so that other people can go plant them. Oh, that was this one.
Way to be first there.
Well, let's move it. We could. I just want to be like conscious of conscious of the time.
You got quick 15 minutes.
Okay, cool. All right. I'm gonna move on. But if you have more questions about that, let me know. I want to talk about rainwater catchment. That's like last time I came here, I just shotgunned with everything we were doing in Arcata and Eureka. I think, and we covered Friends of the Dunes, and so now I want to talk about rainwater catchment in different places. I'm gonna, start this with why I catch the rain, and what are some reasons to catch rain?
No groundwater.
Yeah, because if you don't, or because you don't have to deplete the groundwater if you do it?
We water our whole household and garden with our rainwater catchment every year. But it's only like 600 gallons. I mean, it fills up on a nice misty day. So,
wow, so right, them, they're not plants. They're like you actually you use rainwater catchment to water your garden instead of, or all your landscaping, your entire property, instead of relying on city water that's imported and treated and chlorinated and energy's put into it, and cool. I don't think I could have a better testimonial than somebody in the audience who's using rainwater catchment. Any other reasons to catch the rain?
It falls free from the sky.
It's literally free. It's like there for us. It's like every hydrological cycle, every turn around it is renewal. It's like a fresh chance at life every single time, and taking advantage of it's kind of fun. There's a bunch of different reasons that people do it, and sometimes some of the ones I'm going to cover is just pure necessity. Some of the ones that I'm going to cover, there's this Japanese word matanai. I'm probably pronouncing it terribly, but it's the sense you feel inside when you see something wasted. And I love having a word for something because it makes it real. And I've watched people experience it. You're like, that is a waste, and there's a feeling of that. And all of this water falling on us, if you don't utilize it, it often is causing erosion even to your own property, and it's also often causing a source of pollution. Instead, you could be catching it using less energy. In Humboldt, we have a lot of water, so sometimes it's a little bit less obvious. There's a couple of different types of ways you can do it. The main two type are you can catch it passively, like going right into your landscaping or recharging your groundwater, or you can build a system. I'm just going to flash some scenes of how systems are built, and then I'm going to get to talking about a few projects. This is the general components of it. You catch it, you move it, you filter it, then you do this thing called a first flush, depending on how you're going to be using the water. It gets rid of the first 10 minutes of rain, so 90-something% of the dirtiness is in that first 10%. If you're planning, or first 10 minutes. If you're planning on drinking the water, you definitely should have a first flush. That's what it looks like. But I don't have much time, so I'm just gonna, these technical details are available online. Here's from swale. This is a filter we built from sand. That's before filtration, that's after filtration. And then also we tested it and it works really well. And we're treating not just rainwater, it's rainwater that's gone into the hull of the barge. And so it's pretty dirty. And then we're pumping it back up. On average, a house in the US catches 33,000 gallons a year. That house in the background is the one. That little house doesn't catch it. It's over there. Okay, that's bad. So, building, I love building systems, but what I love even more is working with crazy groups of people to get it done, which I know that Rotary knows a lot about, right? And so the way I usually do that is when I work in a community, I have no idea what I'm going to build. I don't know if it's going to be rainwater or solar or housing, or gardens or waste plastic extruders. But what we do is we have a series of community meetings that often look like that, kind of like chaos with white paper and pens around, and we run a series of like, what are our main needs and what are our main resources? And so this community, some people are spending up to 40% of their income on water. 40% just for clean drinking water. The ones who aren't spending that much are not spending that much because they reappropriate their electricity. They're just kind of, they go out and connect to the wires themselves with scrap wire, and then they use that with a spring to heat up their water so that they can boil it and drink the water. And so rainwater catchment was a deal there. This was in Santo Domingo. That community is called La Yuca de Naco, and it's the last poor community left in the center of the town. And they fought and been able to stay. So we built a small schoolroom out of plastic bottles, and then off the roof of that, we built a small rainwater catchment system. That catchment system was meant to do a few things, one of which the school was buying 2 trucks of water every month just for cleaning. And we wanted to replace that. And then also they had no drinking water, they just had to buy drinking water, and they had no hand washing for the bathrooms, or flushing. The flushing happened once a night with the janitor would come and just, with the water from the cistern, from the truck water they bought, would flush the toilet once a night. But no hand washing, and hand washing is a major health indicator. Sometimes in the US I watch people not wash their hands after the bathroom, and the first thing I'm thinking is, ooh. But the second thing I'm thinking is like, we literally have clean water and soap like right at our bathroom. Like it's so easy. So, wash your hands. We did it. Now the school has to buy just 2 trucks a year worth of water. And they have hand washing right in their bathroom. And then the water for the hand washing, after you wash your hands, it fills the toilet. So after every few hand washings, there's enough water to flush the toilet. So you get kind of that double reuse out of it. So that's that system. Let's look at a couple more. This is in Chiapas, Mexico. This is a group called Las Abejas Cívicas. They're like kind of a pacifist, Catholic, I'm probably doing a poor job of describing this, but contemporary of the Zapatistas. So they work alongside the Zapatistas with kind of a slightly different tactic. their community was part of a terrible massacre in the 90s, and we worked together to try to create a rainwater catchment system for the community that 6 months a year doesn't have. They're collecting surface water for drinking. And waterborne illness is still a major killer of especially children around the world. This was the system that we ended up building. This is one of the houses, and that collects into this cistern here. It's a 19,000 liter cistern made from ferro cement, which is fence and concrete that you just kind of smooth on from both sides. So materials that you can find almost anywhere in the world, and build a very large system. The cool, creative aspect of this that really inspired me was that the system is actually using catchment from multiple roofs in the community, catching into this one tank, and then that tank goes to everyone in the community. It's a small community, but that type of sharing, it's hard for me to picture like that happening in most of the US, where you like have like, these 3 houses are gonna catch the rainwater. We're not gonna like figure out who has how much water, and then it's gonna go to everyone in the neighborhood. But I could see it. I could see it in Arcata, Eureka. I think we should do it.
I get my roof. There you go, you got one roof.
Okay, all right. We also, you know, instead of, like on that roof, for instance, you can see that the materials are ones that were more available. The gutter is made from roofing material, just bent. The filter is made from an old broken bucket. Yeah. All right, I want to talk about another system in, Eureka. I don't know, anybody go to Zane? Anybody? All right. So Zane Middle School has a garden, and that garden also has a rainwater catchment system, and there's also edible landscaping. This rainwater catchment system is meant to do a few things. The main thing was to be water for the garden and to kind of inspire kids about how you can catch water and engage in kind of the sustainable building projects. I'd love to talk more about the project, but I'm going to focus on the one thing that I think is just an amazing source of creativity. This was HSU students working with Zane staff and teachers, and they came up with something that's brilliant. And I'd never seen in any other rainwater catchment system, and I've now told a lot of people about it because I hope it shows up. That conveyance, the pipe that's going from the roof to the tank, some of you who have kids, or still a kid in your mind, you're like, oh, I could use that to get on the roof, right? and that's what Zane realized. And so what we didn't want to happen was the system to break or the awning to break. So what they did is they put a flex fitting at the top there and a zip tie where it connects to the roof. And so if you reach up and grab it, the zip tie breaks and the pipe just bends down. But from the flex fitting, the pipe doesn't bend, the flex fitting bends, right? They've had to replace it 3 times in like 5 years. That's 15 cents. That's the type of like creative engagement that excites me the most, and I love working with HSU students for it because they're right at that sweet spot where they like, you know, naive enough to believe that something can happen, right? Like, we can do this, which you need. You need that naivety or else nothing happens, right? But still with some, you know, some skills. One last one I want to throw in the examples. This one is one we just did in Puerto Rico. As you know, the situation in Puerto Rico is still terrible. Most people without energy, most people without water. We're working with a group called the Institute for Socio-Environmental Research. It's really exciting for me to work with them because they're not a technical group. Right? They just happen to be on the ground in Puerto Rico, so they understand the context, and they contacted me. I would go back to one of the slides where I was doing a rainwater talk in New York. One of the guys there is the president of the Institute for Socio-Environmental Research. And he's like, Lonny, can you help us design something? We're paying $8,000 for a system that treats 250 gallons of water every 2 hours. And I think we can make it cheaper. So 250 gallons every 2 hours for totally clean water. $8,000. So this is the system that we designed. All off-the-shelf parts. We just kind of came up with, you know, somewhat unique, not very unique, but somewhat unique ways of putting them all together. And then they built them. And so these systems cost 1/10 for just a little bit more throughput. So 275 gallons every 2 hours instead of 250 gallons every 2 hours. and a 10th the amount. So they're now going to be able to get clean water to 10 times more people for the same amount of money. And that was done with HSU students working on it here, and then just shipping them the designs, and they were shipping in the parts to get it all put together. That is that's kind of the some context of rainwater, some of the different ways that our students engage in this, and I just wrote my first book. It comes out this month, I hope. In fact, when I did that talk in New York, talk about naivety being like a driver of doing stuff. When I did that talk in New York, I bought that ticket for my book signing. That was going to be my book signing in New York. That was July. I didn't have any books to sign. I had like a little one piece of paper from the book that I like printed. And I was like, I can sign it, and I hear it. So it's really, really close. And I now know in the future that to like just double the amount of time I think it's going to take. I feel so lucky to get to do these projects from Humboldt. This is like my home base, and it's amazing how many just resources and input. And I've called like Ben Skirfield from Skirfield Solar. I called him from the roof in Dominican Republic one time because I couldn't figure out how this inverter was working, and he answered the phone and he's like, let me talk you through it. We have such a cool base here, and to get to see the impact that my students go and have, and now some of my students are running programs in some of the countries that we built stuff. One of our old students is doing large-scale community rainwater catchment in Mexico now. And when I say large-scale, I mean large-scale. I built projects for like 3 houses. Right? He's doing ones for like 100 houses. Crazy large-scale systems. I really appreciate your time and letting me give you the update. If you got any questions, I'm right here. I think I might be out of time, but you can run.
One question.
One question.
Good.
Make it good. So the key is to make sure the pizza's cold before you put it in the bag. Because otherwise it sticks to the
Now in appreciation of you speaking today, we think this donation can go to the Wheelchair Foundation. So this is for you. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can sign it. Oh, I
How are you
forgot.
going
Real
to
quick.
eat if your books are free, Lonny?
That's a great question. I don't have an answer to it yet. But so real quick, the book is free online digitally. If you buy the book physically, the money goes back to the Appropedia Foundation, which shares these type of solutions. So it has all the nitty-gritty details. HSU Press is one of the people that's making that possible. They're not taking any of the money from the publishing, and then Appropedia is the one taking care of all the finances of it. So sign up for the free book. If you sign up for that, you'll also get a link when it's available for physical sale. So thank you. Thank you for my.
All right, raffle time. Sarah, you know the drill.
President Slush.
3
I'm just gonna be here in Arcata.
Yeah, I took care of Not loud. Hey! 8, 2, 3, 1, 1, 0. 1, 1, 0.
That's me.
You guys
Yeah,
to win. Or now you can pick one of the balls.
Oh my God.
Dollar on the table.
You're welcome.
Oh wait, it's dollar on the
Is
table.
there another dollar on the table? Dick! Dick! Oh! Get my dollar back! Oh! Did you make that, Greg? No drinks for you.
This was a banner that came up from my daughter Megan's club. This is the Heat Club at the Silicon Valley. If you're looking to do a makeup, really easy, it's online. But she came up just for Taste of the Holidays. She loves this event. So,
All right, one announcement too, I wanted to say one of our clubs in Eureka, they donated 101 turkeys to the Eureka Rescue Mission. So that's, did you want to say anything about that, Tom? Or no? You just saw it in front of me and said, this is pretty phenomenal. So yeah, that's, I think that deserves it. Any other general announcements? Nick, go for it.
So I have a great opportunity if somebody has some spare time. The Interact Club is running the ice skating rink on the 3rd, which is Sunday, from 1:30 to 8:30 p.m. If you want to come and meet them and see whatever, what they do in our community, it's a good opportunity. It's a fun event. Just Craig and I will be, splitting up the times. They need supervisors, basically. There always has to be an adult there, either selling, taking the money from inside the nice, warm booth that sells food, or you can kind of hang out on the ice with the kids. The more volunteers we have, we need as many Rotarians as can come, so that we can split up the thing. If you want to hang out for an hour, that's perfect. If you want to hang out for 3 hours, that's perfect too.
What's the day again?
If
Sunday.
it's Sunday. So Craig and I will have to split along with their faculty advisor. This is always one of the big things that we have to do, and it's the last year that they're kind of doing that, unless one of the businesses over there takes over for that.
And it's a fundraiser for the Interact Club.
And it
Because
is
the way they
a
work that
fundraiser.
down there is nonprofits volunteer to basically operate the rink, and then they pay the nonprofit $300 for operating the rink. So we actually kind of got aced out of, last year we did several days, we got aced out, we only got 1 day this year because all the really nonprofits want to work there. But a lot of families and kids come out and skate. You'd be surprised, and sometimes it's exciting. Ambulances come and go. It's not all dull.
Like NASCAR, you gotta love a good crash.
If you know that you want to do that, can you come talk to me? And if you think about it this weekend, email Craig or I, so we can kind of figure out the volunteer schedule for them. If not, just all day.
Thank you, guys. Yeah. Let's see, one more thing too. Does anyone know how to do graphic design in here? Do you know how to do it, Rebecca? Because we need to design a page for our club to go in the program. It's in the IBT. So we have an older one, but it'd be fun to update it. So